This is the summary for Lesson 3, Balanced Moves. And in this summary, they're going to show you that you can balance both sides of an equation by making different moves, either adding or subtracting numbers or adding or subtracting terms with variables. So in this case, we have two expressions. One expression on one side is 4x plus 9. The expression on the other side is a negative 2x minus 3. And I always like to change the subtraction to addition. So this is the same as subtracting a negative 3. Adding a negative 3. It's subtracting a positive 3 is the same as adding a negative 3. So this expression and this expression. And you can add, they get to the point where you can add negative 9. Well, that's what I always naturally do anyway. So I'm going to remove this 9 by using the additive inverse of adding a negative 9. So add a negative 9 to one side, add that same negative 9 to the other side. And so this is negative 3 plus negative 9 equals negative 12. Now the authors say it's subtracting 3 and then adding negative 9. And so now you get subtracting a positive 12. I just think that's confusing. If you change everything to addition, there's no confusion. You have adding a negative 3, then adding negative 9, so you end up adding negative 12. I think it's much better stated in that way. So add negative 9 to each side, combine the like terms. So each of these individual parts of an expression that are separated by addition is called a term. And you can combine the terms that are the same, that are alike. And so you have, in this case, it's just combining numbers. So 9 plus negative 9 is 0, and negative 3 plus negative 9 is negative 12. So on this, the next page, this is 4x minus negative 2x minus, equals negative 2x minus 12. And that is right here, 4x equals negative 2x minus 12. And now they're making the point that you can also add expressions to each side. And I differ a little bit with this. I would say that you can add terms to each side, terms that include both just numbers or terms that include variables. I think an expression is one side of an equation, and expressions are made up of terms. So if I want to get rid of this negative 2x right here, I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So negative 2x plus a positive 2x equals 0. And notice that you're left with negative 12. So it's as if you change this to adding negative 12, and now you're left with that negative 12. Now I would have preferred if they had used the commutative property, put these two terms right next to each other. So it's a negative 2x plus a positive 2x. It's easier to see that they're adding a positive 2x to get rid of this negative 2x if you place them right next to each other using the commutative property. But nonetheless, you're left with 6x, so 4x plus 2x equals 6x. So this is combining like terms. And that equals negative 12. Where does this 2x come from? You're adding 2x to one side of the equation and adding 2x to the other side of the equation. And now you get this to the point where you want to get that x by itself by removing the coefficient. The way to remove the coefficient is using the multiplicative inverse. Now they say you could either multiply or divide. I always multiply. I use the multiplicative inverse of 6 is 1/6. If I have 6 things and I want to know what one of them equals, it's 1/6 of those 6 things. Now it's true you can divide, but over here they make this statement that you cannot divide by 0. Well, if you're always using the multiplicative inverse, you'll never make this mistake because you cannot write a fraction as 1 over 0. So you won't make that mistake. All right, so we're at multiplying using the multiplicative inverse to get rid of the coefficient. So 1/6 is the multiplicative inverse of 6. If I'm looking at 1/6 of 6x, that's equal to negative 12. So I have to look at 1/6 of negative 12. Well, 1/6 of negative 12, and they say, or you can divide. You're never going to use this symbol, or you're very rarely going to use this symbol as you go farther in math. So just write it as 6x divided by 6. equals a negative 12 divided by 6. And this simplifies 6x over 6. Those two 6's cancel. They equal 1, so you're left with x equals a negative 12 divided by 6. And that simplifies. You can write the factors. The opposite of 2 times 6, 6 divided by 6 is 1, so it's the opposite of a positive 2, which is negative 2. So now we see that x equals negative 2 is the solution to our equation. So it seems like it's going through a lot, but as you get more and more accustomed to making these moves, you're going to see that this is just very easy to do. It becomes understood. You're simplifying this multiplication right here, negative 12 sixths, or divided by 6, or multiplied, better stated, multiplied by 1/6. And that simplifies to negative 2. Let me say that one more time. 1/6 of negative 12 is negative 2.